now. So welcome everyone to our Management 3.0 seminar of the month. This is our April seminar, and we are super lucky to have Todd Palmer with us talking about getting unstuck, entrepreneurial strategies for breakthrough success in your life and business. And I really feel like can't think of a kind of like a better topic for right now with everything that's going on in the world. And so Todd, it's really great to have you. You know, we've chatted before. It's been such a pleasure. You're inspirational and you have such a good energy. So I'm going to let you take it away. But everyone on the chat, this is an open discussion. So feel free to ask questions. You can write them in the chat. You can write them in the Q&A. Feel free to turn on your video. Mine's just not on because of bandwidth, but yeah, like definitely feel free to do that. And if you're not speaking, just put your mic on mute, or I will mute you, but it's better if you mute yourself. All right, Todd, I'm gonna let you take it from here.
Awesome, thank you so much. Well, I wanna thank everybody for attending today's webinar. We are certainly in very interesting times as a global community, not only of just business people, but beyond that. And there's a lot of people I'm dealing with that are getting stuck. So I love the topic today of getting unstuck. So let me kind of take you back a little bit to bring you forward. As an entrepreneur CEO, my business has gone through and thrived and survived through 9/11 here in the United States. For people who are curious, I'm based out of Detroit, Michigan, in North America. And again, we got through 9/11. We got through the recession here in the United States of 2007, 2008, 2009. And now we're dealing with the corona COVID-19 virus. The interesting part is we look back in how people were getting stuck back in 9/11 and getting stuck back during the recession was we had a common enemy in those cases here in the US. We had the terrorist attacks and the Taliban and Osama bin Laden, as our government was sharing information about that. Then during the recession, we had the banking crisis, the housing crash, all those things. So we had people to blame. With COVID, with Corona, we have no true enemy to blame. What I've seen is a lot of servant leadership in this place, and a lot of people who are stepping up as leaders and stepping up in their community to help other people who are getting hijacked by fear and self-doubt, and taking them through a process that we teach and how to get yourself unstuck through any circumstance. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me to kind of set a platform for what my experience has been in being stuck. And by all means, feel free to ask me any questions. I love the idea of a conversation through a medium like we've got today. We've got over 30 people here today, so I'm sure a lot of you have excellent experiences that would be great to share with the group as well. So my story of getting stuck was that of being an entrepreneur CEO. I started my company for a little less than $15,000 US in 1997. It was a staffing company named Diversified Staffing Services, and we did temporary help. We grew that business through about a 9-year ride of highs and lows, ups and downs. And by the time 2009 reached, as the entrepreneur owner, I'd become a little bit checked out of my business. I was looking at other opportunities, as entrepreneurs are typically known to do. Serial entrepreneurs looking for the next bright and shiny thing. And I moved on to that. I put a management team in place, and I essentially exited the day-to-day running of the business. Well, through a lot of unfortunate circumstances, some we created, some I created, and some that were created for us, thrust down upon us, by September of 2006, that business was $600,000 in debt. I was suffering from a thing called imposter syndrome. For those of you who don't know what imposter syndrome is, a lot of us have it. And it's the voices in our head, it's the self-talk we do of how we're not good enough, how we should have all the answers all the time for all the problems within the business, sometimes even within our lives, within our families, within our personal relationships. I suffered from a lot of that. It was so paralyzing that essentially I became depressed and I could not even get out of bed. I had a management team in place that was running the business in such an unhealthy and dysfunctional way that things were not growing. Things were actually drying up. We had clients that weren't paying us, and we had employees that were underperforming or not performing at all. And I, as the leader, was not comfortable dealing with conflict. I would not address the issues, which was a part of my issues to overcome. I'm $600,000 in debt by September. And I recognized and realized for the first time in my business career that I needed to ask for help. I'd gotten into being an entrepreneur because I had always was very self-reliant. I was a person who through childhood learning and lessons, recognized and realized that I could always depend on myself, where maybe I couldn't always depend upon others. Well, now my business is $600,000 in debt. I'm 2 months away from running out of all of my money. I was a single parent raising my son by myself. He and I were going to lose our home. It was getting scary. It was getting very, very serious. My bank was looking to get issue their collection on my home and all of my assets to pay down the debt. It was getting really, really bad. So I finally reached out for help at the last hour. And I hired a coach. And the coach quickly taught me, within about a week, how I'd gotten into debt, because I didn't really understand how I'd gotten there. He explained to me how important it was to have the right people on my team. And the first book he gave me to read was a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And they talk in the book about having the right people on the right seats in the right positions, going in the right direction. And I didn't have any of that. That was my choice, my mistake, and my ignorance. So I quickly learned that, I didn't trust my staff, and I made the difficult and stressful decision to fire everybody in one day and start my business over. So talk about going from being super stuck and running out of money to going to a new set of problems, letting everybody go and having to do all the work of a dozen people. That's where I put myself into. During that course, we recognized and realized part of getting us unstuck was I had to change myself. So like with my business now, with Extraordinary Advisors and my consulting practice, I work with leaders from the inside out. We work on the leader first. My coach worked on me first to get me as an individual unstuck, then getting me unstuck, then freed up my creative thought processes to correct and change the business. We started making different decisions. Part of that process was to try to figure out within the business, where could we maximize our potential? Where was that inflection point within the marketplace where there was an increased demand and a diminished supply of the human capital we were providing? And we really were struggling to try to understand that, because I had always had people with recruiting industry experience working in my business. So I made the choice that I was going to switch that process. So one of the first things we did to get unstuck was we came up with a process to hire good people, to get good people on our bus, good people going in the right directions, right people, right seat, right position. And we came up with a process we called hiring for DNA, not for resume. And in hiring for DNA, we came up with a diagnostic tool to screen out people who had our core values. We came out with a process to measure them as individuals, as human beings, not just as professional recruiters. And we found that our best people came from other industries. We hired from restaurant, we hired from retail. My number one recruiter came from a medical background, and her job in the medical space was to call people who had been diagnosed with a serious illness and inform them of that on the telephone. This is back in the days when we did a lot of cold calling via landline. And she said to me in the interview, because I was a little reluctant to hire her, she goes, listen, I call people and give them bad news every day. If I can call people now, transfer that skill set and tell them they've got a new job opportunity, or I've got a job interview for them, I'm going to enjoy my job better. I'm going to enjoy my life better. And I think I can make a huge difference in your business. Give me a shot, which I did. And she became my number one salesperson. My number two salesperson was a waiter. He worked at Olive Garden, and he was really good at getting the upsell. He was good at getting people to add on additional items to their tickets, getting them to get dessert. And he had a way of doing that. And he used that transferable skill set, again, DNA, not resume, into our business. So bringing on people like Lisa, bringing people on like Jeremy, bringing on people like Becky and others was super huge to that business turning around. When we were talking to customers on the phone, we started asking them, especially during the recession, what kind of people do they need? Well, they didn't need to hire anybody because we had large unemployment. So the question then became, is if you could hire anybody when the recession was over, when the world was flipped and people were hiring in and making things, what kind of person would you hire? And we identified some spaces within the marketplace, the hidden opportunities within the tragedy that allowed us to really grow and scale that business. Our business changed the name from Diversified Staffing Services to Diversified Industrial Staffing, to be very well known in the marketplace of skilled trades talent. So a skilled trades person was a skilled welder, a skilled machinist who made things, basically people who had the ability to create and build something. Through that process, we were calling plant managers, business owners, HR people, and saying, if we find the kind of person you need, as you told us on our last call, would you be able to add them to your team sooner versus later? And they said, you know what, we will create jobs for these people because they're so hard to find. So we have figured out that there was an increased demand for highly skilled CNC machinists and highly skilled welders, and there was a decreased supply. We went to our governmental websites and found out that the average American welder at the time was about 50 years old. So that there was an outgoing of talent in that space. We then went back to our customers and said, hey, we've got Jim the welder. Are you interested? They said, yes, we'd like to bring him in for an interview. During that process, we let them know that, you know, Jim's already making $20 an hour. In order for him to join your team, he's going to be looking for more than that. Are you open to a higher wage? And they would say, yes, they are. And you do realize that, you know, in that case, we got to charge you more because of the increased demand and the diminished supply. And the client said, okay, and we need to get paid faster. When do you pay your people? Well, we run payroll either weekly or biweekly. It was one of the two ways here in the United States. So then we got tacked into that pay cycle. So what we did in getting unstuck for our business is we identified that increased demand, diminished supply axiom. We then found a way to get paid faster, and we found a way to get paid at a higher margin, which allowed us to dig out of that gigantic hole of being $600,000 in debt. And we just kept doing that over and over and over again in other cities in the United States. We went from Detroit to Chicago to Houston and other sectors where there was a heavy manufacturing base. So we really doubled down and got very niche focused. As compared to going wider into the business community, we actually got very much deeper within the manufacturing sector. And that really was a big key for us to get unstuck as a business. As the owner, I still suffered a lot from imposter syndrome. If the business had a great week, I felt successful. If the business had a bad week, I felt like I had failed. So I needed to address what failure meant to me. And I had to come up with what we called a fail forward mindset. And I know, especially in stressful times, we see failure as win or lose. I tried something and it didn't work. Well, the reality is when I try something, all I do is find one way that it doesn't work, but it doesn't mean it's not going to work. Certainly there are ideas that don't carry marketplace value, but there are a lot of other ideas that just need to be tweaked, modified. And with the learning we get, we have to be able to work through that. And I started reading some books by a doctor on the West Coast of the United States in San Diego by the name of Daniel Friedland. And he has a book called Leading Well from Within. And in that book, he talks about that failure doesn't exist. Failure is just nothing more than a mental construct we've created. And if we remember that since failure really is not, you know, a very measurable thing, what we find is that if we treat every step along the path as a learning opportunity, we'll never fail because we're always learning. We're always iterating, especially people I know if we have anybody on the call today who's in the tech space. In tech, they're often, you know, what kind of fail forward projects can we put together? Well, how do we take that mindset that failure doesn't exist, tie it into hiring people who have DNA, not resume, then to go after more marketplace share? And that was another huge adjustment we made as the leader. And I want to remind everybody who's on the call today, if you have any questions, please go into the chat feature, ask them. I'd be happy to answer them as we're going through here. But you don't need to save them until the end. I'm happy to address them, what's important to you on the phone today. So as we're going through the journey, we're recognizing and realizing that we're growing the business, and we started to get public acknowledgement for that. So I went essentially over the course of about a 10-year period, the business went from being $600,000 in debt, hiring a coach, firing the entire staff, revamping, retooling the staff. And then we started getting some great, they call it hockey stick success. It's started just an even line of growth or just a measure. We really started ramping the business up. Through that, we got acknowledged by an award here in the United States called the Inc. Magazine Award. And we have the Fortune 500 of publicly held businesses. Well, Inc. created a program called the Inc. 5000 for privately held businesses. And we made that list not one time, not two times, but an amazing 6 times in 7 years as one of the fastest growing companies in the United States by using this model. So now what we figured out is, the marketplace was really rewarding us. And we were getting a lot of accolades. I was getting, as a CEO, I was getting opportunities to go speak to audiences like this one today and other ones. But what I figured out still is no matter how much success we were having, as the leader, as the CEO, I still needed to do more work on myself. And what I had to do is dig deeper and figure out how I can feel more successful in life. So I actually went out and hired a gentleman, Danny Friedland. I hired him so that I had a business coach, but I needed more of a life coach and a transformation coach. And what he taught me was that I needed to change my definition of success. My definition of success at one point had been, how fast can I grow the business? How can I get out of this debt? And it's riches and opportunities and houses. We can do all that, but I still didn't feel whole within. So we pivoted my definition of success from extrinsic, external things to internal beliefs. So now my success is really defined super simply as doing what I want, when I want, as often as I want it, and whom I want to do it with. So if I want to take a Wednesday afternoon and go spend it with my family and go to the park and play ball, that's a successful day. It doesn't cost me anything. I'm doing it and it meets my criteria. Once I made that shift internally, then the business really exploded. And I've been doing some wonderful things in teaching that methodology to other people so they can create a life by design, work, lead from the inside out, and then create accountabilities to what I want to attain. Well, it looks like we have a question here from, I think it's Alim. Said the question is it fair to think and argue now and after crisis opportunities, or should we focus on our staff in real-time businesses? So I'm going to try to answer that question to the best of my ability. If I don't get it correctly, please, dialogue me so I can make sure I give you the answer that you're seeking. What I think we've got going on currently in the marketplace is entrepreneurs, by and large, unless you're in a really specific space, are essentially taking their businesses and learning to be able to survive to come out of this on the other side still intact. Sometimes with that, I've been coaching clients literally around the globe for the last 3 weeks around this topic. And the steps I'm taking them through, which I hope this will help answer your question, is the first thing I'm asking all my entrepreneur CEOs that I'm coaching is, what's your mindset? What are you afraid of? Let's get that out on the table. Again, inside out leadership. What's bothering you? What are your fears? And I've had some saying, I think I'm gonna have to file for bankruptcy. I think I'm gonna have to let my entire team go. I think I'm in a really vulnerable spot. I may lose my home. I'm concerned if I lose my home, I may lose my family. Lots of big conversations. Once those fears are shared, once we put some plans in place for that, then the second question we have to ask is, what is our cash position? What is our cash runway? How many days of money do we have to keep our business open? It may be 15 days, it may be 15 months. I never know. And have them lay out what do they plan to do. So they're dealing with that in the moment, on that call with me. The third thing we do is we talk about, what are you going to do with your staff? What are you going to do with the people that work for you? A lot of companies don't have any work coming in, so there's no work to do. So then they have to come up with programs. Do they want to furlough the employees, which means we're going to have them essentially take time off unpaid until we have work in, but not file for unemployment. We're not going to lay them off or terminate them. Other companies are seeing this time as an opportunity to kind of clear out some of the people they should have let go of 6 months ago, which is a really unique thing to watch when I say to somebody, so how many people do you think you're going to have to let go? Well, I'm going to have to let go 5. Oh, are you planning to bring all 5 back? The answer back to me is, no, I'm probably only going to bring back 3. Well, what about the 2 that you're going to be letting go that you're not going to be bringing back? And this is really where the leadership styles come out to play. I've been thinking about letting them go. I just didn't have the courage to do it. Now I have to let them go. And this is going to help me clean house and retool some of my departments, which I think is a really interesting answer. Where this takes the business then and it positions it to survive. A lot of businesses just need to survive right now, and growth mode will occur, in 6 months or even later once we get through all of this. So I think right now we have to focus on what you currently have. What is your, as in they talk about in the book, Good to Great, what is your Stockdale paradox? What is your brutal reality? And I think for everybody on the call, we've got almost 40 people now. What is your brutal reality? Well, the brutal reality for most companies is I have no work. Maybe the government has shut me down, and I want to be able to live to survive and be able to come out of this still intact and not have to close my doors, not have to file bankruptcy. In order to do that, I have to lean into uncomfortable moments. I have to have tough conversations with maybe my bank, sometimes with our landlords. Are we getting rent deferral or rent abatement? With our employees, are we able to assist them and give them an understanding of where they're going to be in 6 to 9 months? And ultimately with our families, to let them know that, we aren't exactly sure where we're going to be in the future, but we are going to survive this somehow. And it's one of the greatest things in being in an opportunity today, like I have today with you guys, is to talk about, how do you get through the recession? How do you get through, like I went through in 2006 when I let everybody go? So to bring it back to the recession piece, 2009, we had been practicing open book management. And in the open book management process, every week I shared with my team where they were, where the business was. Did it make money? Did it lose money? It was a really simple process. If I wrote it on the board in green, we made money. If I wrote it on the board in red, well, we lost money. And then I would explain to them what losing money meant to a business, because they were so used to their household budgets. not into a business budget. So it was financial teaching and financial literacy for those employees. They would then recognize and realize, okay, what's my impact? How can I impact the profitability of the organization? How can I contribute? Which I loved about this group. They were really focused on how can we make a difference? Well, as we're in the recession, people aren't hiring. And how do we can't always create jobs like we were in every circumstance. So I had the difficult conversation with my entire team. I had to lay everybody off in 2009. And it was such a powerful galvanizing bonding experience, believe it or not. Because we've been practicing open book management, they knew it was coming. We had talked about all the things, as a leader, I talked about all the things that I had done. I'd worked with my bank to try to restructure debt. I worked with my landlord to try to get rate abatement. I talked to all of my vendors. How can I defer paying you until we come out of this tough time? And I talked to my clients that we still had working and asked them, could they pay us faster? Do they have any hiring spikes in the future? What was their planning like? So I brought all of this to the staff. I let everybody, in one meeting understand where we stood as a company and to let them know that unfortunately I'd be having to lay them off. And then what I did, and I think this is really important in regards to the communication, is I laid out for them all the questions I thought they would have, such as, you're laying me off. How is that going to impact my family? How is that going to impact my ability to pay my bills, pay for my home, pay for my car, etc.? And it was an opportunity for me to be very clear and upfront with them versus putting my head in the sand, or as a client of mine tried to do. It was so frustrating. Last week, client sends me a text message. Can you talk? I get on the phone with him. Yeah, I need to lay off half of my team. I'm going to put it into an email and send it out to them. And as one of the people in the chat said, everybody should be talked with clearly and directly. I could not agree with you more. And I got very frustrated with my client. I said, Mike, you can't send it in an email. You have to have one-on-one conversations with everybody. Even if it's just on the telephone and you can't see them, people need to be dealt with. They need to be seen and they need to be heard. And they need to know everything that you've done as the leader to prevent this from happening. And they need to know everything that you're doing as a leader to let them know that that they can come back to work eventually as quickly as humanly possible. And he was because he was such a problem avoider. We worked really hard in creating a script and a language for him to follow so that he could go forward and do that. And thankfully he took the counsel and moved on to be able to have those conversations with people. So someone's asking a question. Question is it easy to lay people off? Where I am from, we have laws protecting the employee. So great question. So all of my experience shares are from the United States. And in the United States, we have what they call right to work laws. And a right to work law, simply put, is as the employee, I can come and go and I can quit this job at any time without notice. As the employer, unless you're union protected, the same exists for you. So you can let people come and go as the business requires talent, or if someone's not working off, you can free them up through termination so they can go find another opportunity. So all of my examples are United States based. So if I've said something that doesn't make sense to you, please put it in the chat. I'm happy to talk through that. So going back to the story of 2009, when I laid everybody off, I had two employees who took the unemployment benefits provided by the state of Michigan, where I live, yet they continue to work from home for free. And I wasn't even aware of it. So all of a sudden I'm getting these emails from people like 2 weeks later with updates on projects they were working on or ideas they had. And so I called one woman, her name was Becky. I said, what are you doing? She says, I believe in the vision of the company. I believe in you as a leader, and I adhere to our core values, which we had posted on our wall. She says, so we will come back, and you need help. You can't do all this by yourself. And so don't worry about it. I'm happy to volunteer my time, and please let me know when you can come back. And this is 11 years ago, and I still remember that story. And it still touches my heart because she was so heart-centered in how she operated. And so it was a huge, huge deal to our company to be upfront, to talk with them clearly and directly, to share open book management, to give them financial literacy so that when these tough times occurred, they were able to double down on the business and in some sense, double down on me as the CEO leader. And that year we still made the Inc. 5000 as one of the fastest growing companies, even during a recession. Oh, let's see, we have another question. How to make employees overcome the fear of failures and make them stay strong mentally to face tough times like this corona crisis? That is an awesome question. Thank you for asking it. What I would suggest to anybody who's interested in really creating a workplace environment where fear of failure is eliminated and where failures are succeeded and celebrated is check out some of the work that's being done at Google. Google's been putting out a couple of articles over the last few years about psychological workplace safety. And they lay out a very step-by-step process on how to create a psychologically safe work environment. And I believe that, you know, regardless of your product or regardless of your service, I think it always comes down to the people on our teams and the people in leadership. I mean, there's really 4 pieces to any business. There's cash, there's strategy, there's execution, and then there's staff. What people often overlook, and a lot of coaches don't understand, and it's so frustrating, is people make all the decisions about cash. People make all the decisions and create all the strategies. People do all the executions of those strategies, and people hire and fire and select teammates to be on those teams to execute those strategies that spend the cash. It's always a people issue. So if we can create a psychologically safe work environment, we can make it in a safe space in the room. And just a couple of tips on how you can do that is you want to have an open forum ability for people to share ideas, to be seen and to be heard. And again, the Google people do a really good job of laying this out in a psychological safe work environment. It creates the safety that I can speak up without fear of judgment, without fear of reprisal. Potentially, you know, in some of the studies they showed, people were afraid to speak up because they thought they might get fired or terminated from their job. So psychological safe work. In fact, I've got an article coming out on this, I think as early as next month, about how to create a psychologically safe workplace. I'm still working on it. So by all means, check that out when it comes out. It'll be on my website, extraordinaryadvisors.com. And so the safe workplace is so important. I guess, does anybody else have any questions at this point?
I have a question, Todd.
Please.
Yeah, you're moderating this quite well. You're doing a great job. I'm wondering, you talk about now it's time to lean into the uncomfortable moments and have tough conversations. I feel like a lot of people, you know, it's normal, would have a hard time with that. Just having hard conversations, and like the easiest of times is hard, and now it's probably harder. So I guess, yeah, any tips or practical advice you give on how to do that and how to do that well?
Well, it's a learned skill over time. I still am not great at it. But I think a lot of it comes down to, you know, creating that sense of trust. So one of the programs that I've borrowed from the psychological world that I apply to the business world is a process called Imago, and it's spelled IMAGO. In Imago, it's from Imago therapy. It's a couples counseling process. But really, if I'm talking to a friend, we're a couple of people. If I'm talking to my spouse, we're a couple of people. I'm talking to yes, Jordy, IMAGO. So Imago therapy really is stating the issue. So I'll kind of quickly try to role play it out with you. So I'm going to make up a fictitious story about an employee. So Jane, the facts of the issue are that you're continually late to the office. My judgment upon that is that you really don't care about your work and that you really don't care about your job. What I'm asking you my request of you is that you start being on time, because unfortunately, if you're not going to be on time to start your shift, we're going to have to replace you and let you go. Then Jane would say, Todd, is there more? I would say, no, Jane, there isn't more. Then what Jane's responsibility in the dialogue is to then mirror back to me. So it would look something like this. So Todd, what I hear you saying is that I'm perpetually late. Yes, that's correct. Then I would validate, yes, that's correct. And what you'd like from me is you'd like for me to be on time, or there's a potential I could lose my job. Am I understanding you correctly? I said, yes, Jane, you are. She goes, and then it really comes down to then Jane recommitting to being either on time or talking about why she's late. Because then what leaning into the uncomfortable does is it's the wrapping on the package is massive curiosity. I need to sometimes struggle to find out why Jane's always late. So Jane can say, you know, Todd, I'm perpetually late because I have a childcare issue. Oh, okay. Now I understand it better. Okay. How can I help you with that? Can I start my shift late because sometimes my sitter's running late, or I'm using a parent or a trusted guardian? What can I do about that? So I then all of a sudden now as the leader, I can pivot my mindset and say, okay, as long as you get the work done and I get my whatever your committed time is, 8-hour window, you know, if you can come in late, I need you to stay late. Okay, now we understand it. And now it takes that pink elephant out of the room. What happens a lot when we don't lean into the uncomfortable moments and we don't deal with issues and we don't deal with people, again, whether it's family or work, is resentments build up and then explosions and fights happen. See, I've seen it happen in boardrooms and I've seen it happen at dining rooms. People will get so hijacked, and what happens is it's called the story I tell myself. So the story I could be telling myself as leader about Jane's attendance is she doesn't care about her job. Well, Jane is going to be, the story she's going to be telling herself is my boss doesn't care that I have childcare issues. By having that uncomfortable conversation, by leaning in and being a leader, it's important. I think there's three pieces of leadership that are so key, especially when it comes to difficult conversations or a lot of the tough times that we're in. And I would say the three words, if you want to remember them, are ATV: authenticity, transparency, and vulnerability. If people are more authentic, more transparent, which reveals their vulnerability about things that are important to them, we have a human connection with them. We connect with them on a greater level. The leader who stands in front of his team and says, I don't have all the answers, what do you think, is going to get a lot more buy-in than the leader who just shouts out ideas from top of the mountain to get his team to buy in, but maybe they don't. One of the ways I'm really working with my clients on to create ATV in the room, authenticity, transparency, and vulnerability, is my leaders always speak last, whether it's a boardroom or a leadership room. And we go around the room for an idea, we go around the room for a brainstorming, and the leader always speaks last. And they get really upset because they want to jump in. They were like me. They wanted to be the smartest kid in the room. They thought they had to have all the ideas. Their imposter syndrome is screaming at them, jump in, jump in, jump in. When in reality, often all the leader has to do is hear the 10 other ideas in the room. Some of those ideas are probably better than theirs or not. But if they are better, they simply just have to say, what do we need? Or all they need to say is, okay, I really like Jane's idea. We're going to go with it. They just have to rubber stamp it. Oh, someone in the chat room is asking me, what does the A stand for? Authenticity. So there's authenticity, transparency, and vulnerability. And those are often, I find, hallmarks to good leadership. Are there more questions?
Anyone have any questions? You can also turn your speaker on also. Don't have to just do the chat. Okay, I guess I'll ask another one.
Go ahead.
I think someone already, it's been said obviously, but what advice would you give people right now during this time who, you pulled yourself out of such a rut. I mean, like, your story is incredible. And I think now probably a lot of people can really, really, really relate to what you went through or starting to. I guess, what would you say to people? What advice would you give?
So it's so funny. So I'm working on my second book, and I wrote this chapter 2 days ago. And it's how I'm currently reinventing my business today. So my main business is, business coaching and speaking from stage keynotes for business conferences and leadership conferences and the whole myriad of entrepreneurship. And starting in February through May, I was supposed to be at 6 different conferences around the globe, giving a keynote speech on either hiring or on leadership. And in the model for a coach is you get on stage to get in front of your ideal audience. Someone in your audience resonates with your message, or they connect with you on social media, and you engage in a dialogue for potential coaching clients. It's a very simple model. Well, that model's been taken away from me. There's no stage to speak. All events have been canceled, and all of my venues or all of my associations or whoever's going to bring me in now want me to do webinars, which is great. I'm happy to do it. So I have to now reinvent my business because the number one way for me to get new clients has changed. So what have I done? I've tied into my core beliefs, my core values, my purpose of doing this. I worked with a gentleman about a dozen years ago by the name of Simon Sinek, and he wrote a very powerful book, The Power of Why. And for me, I spent 2 years to figure out 2 words. My why is to improve lives. And I would often tell myself that I would go speak at these conferences with the intention of improving lives. I found that for me, it's much better to have an intention versus an expectation. I didn't walk on stage with the expectation I was going to walk out of that room with 5 clients. What I wanted, my intention was to walk on stage to be able to impact potentially 5 people in the audience of a couple hundred. Whatever it was going to be was good with me. If I impacted 1 person, it was good with me. So I thought, well, how do I get back to my core purpose of improving lives? So I've been doing a lot of webinars like this one. I've been doing a lot of volunteer work. I'm part of a group called the Entrepreneurial organization. It's a global group of 14,000 CEOs. And I've been doing 30-minute free coaching sessions where people get on the phone with me. We have a dialogue about where they are. I take them through a 4-step process to get them unstuck. And, it's my chance to give back to the community. And those conversations have been so powerful. I had one person say to me, they get on the call and say, I'm not sure why I'm here because I'm going to be filing bankruptcy tomorrow. Within 35 minutes, she got unstuck. She was able to find 3 different ways to get funding for her business to keep the cash flow going. And she came up with 3 new marketing ideas for her business because she was in the destination event business, which is shut down. And she's going to live to fight another day. That helped me feel like I improved her life, which totally was just exactly where I wanted to be. So I'm having to reinvent my business too, because I can't speak from stage. So what am I doing? I'm anchoring in my core beliefs, my core purpose of why I do what I do, and how can I get in front of my ideal audience through webinars, through volunteer work, through social media posts. How else can we do that? In fact, anybody who's on the call today, if you're interested in having a one-on-one dialogue with me, I'm happy to give you 30 minutes. Reach out to me at todd@extraordinaryadvisors.com. And by all means, I'm happy to schedule some time with you, just like I've done for other CEOs around the globe, because it gives back to me. It keeps me focused on why I do all this, which is really to improve lives. So someone has a question here in the chat. How to pitch your idea to investors, or other ways around how to get the investors. So this has been my experience with investors, not only people who've invested in me and my business at one point, but in people I've invested in as that angel investor or that Shark Tank guy. People invest, in my belief, primarily in the entrepreneur. They want to know who you are, what makes you different, what are you doing for your business. Typically, a lot of entrepreneurs don't need money on the upfront like they think they do. There's a lot of sweat equity we can put into things. There's a lot of different things that can be done to grow your business without having to take in outside monies. The cheapest outside money, if you can get it, is going to be coming from one of the three F's, which I call friends, family, and fools. People who invest in us before they invest in our business. So if you can find that, if you can get money from them, that's always a good route to go. Come in with the plan. Come in with a return on their investment. The second best option, if you can get it, is going to be from here in the United States. Now, I'm going to qualify this by here in the United States. It's either friends, family, and fools. It's going to be your bank or your credit union if they can give you money. And the last is to get money from an outside person. That's typically expensive money, and they typically have to give up equity or you have to give up an ownership share of the business. And if the business grows really well, you're essentially in a weird diluted position somewhere years down the line. So there's a lot of different ways to get money. In today's economy, I'm not sure who your best option really is, because I'm not sure how much money is being freed up. And why do I say that? I work a lot with people who are in turnarounds and businesses are struggling, like CPAs and accountants, and they're saying not a lot of money is flowing out right now. A lot of people are being very cash stingy and they're being considerate with their money. So I can't specifically point you in a perfect direction today, but again, go to friends, go to family, go to your banks, and worst case scenario, you can go to try and find either angel investors, venture capitalists, but it depends on really what your product is. But ultimately, it depends on who you are as the entrepreneur and what you're going to bring to the table. Another question. Would pooling the resources help the small businesses to regain its strength to an extent during these tough times? Can you suggest a few strategies for small businesses to pool money and get out of crisis? So the first thing I tell all of my clients, and typically my clients are usually under 10 million in revenue. Here in the United States, only about 5% of companies reach $1 million or more in revenue. So it's a unique space. But I work with I've also done a lot of volunteer work with solopreneurs, people who are one person shops. Typically what I tell people to do is, one, look at how much money you have in the bank and figure out what your daily or your weekly or your monthly spend number is. So if your average monthly spend is $4,000, then and you have $16,000 in the bank, that means you have a 4-month runway just on cash. Take into account, the second thing you want to look at is your receivables ledger, your days outstanding number, and how quickly you're going to be getting more money in. If you're going to say you're going to get another $16,000 in, now you've gone from a 4-month runway to a 7-month runway. That'll keep your business floating and alive. You may not be taking a lot of money off the table. You aren't going to be going on big trips or spending great deals of cash, but know what your cash position is. Now, if you don't have a lot of cash, where can you make your cuts? Then you go to your balance sheet and you go to your profit and loss statement. You go through it line item by line item by line item by line item, and you're going to find opportunities for things to cut. So if you are, if you're spending a lot of money on internet services, for example, and you've cut staff and you're still spending a lot of money on a huge infrastructure, call your vendor up and talk to them. A lot of people now are having assistance programs during business tough times where you don't have to make payments on rent, you don't have to make payments on phone. Take it to a personal level. At least here in the United States, again, this is all US-based feedback. You can call your mortgage lender and get a 3-month deferral on your mortgage on your home. You can reduce or eliminate your car payment for 60 to 90 days. And you can call different vendors, your credit card vendors. You can reserve cash to be able to get out of this tough time while there isn't a lot of work to do. So that's what I'm seeing a lot of my clients doing, and I'm recommending that they take a look at their balance sheet, they take a look at their profit and loss statement, they look at their days outstanding, and if they have to look at cutting staff, how do you successfully cut the human capital that isn't necessarily essential to the business, but is more a product of work created by the essential team you have. All right, so next person has a question about ATV. I've tried to be transparent with my team and it didn't go well. It was kind of harmful for me. So it's hard in a closed environment like this to understand exactly how that occurred. Where I've seen ATV fail is when it hasn't been part of your culture and part of your dynamic through months or even years. I could not go in 2006 when I let my entire team go and I fired everybody and go in and be ATV, because I had not exhibited that. When I pivoted, when I changed, when I hired the coach, we worked on working inside out with me. Then I was able to do that so that we were able to be more upfront. It's much easier to be ATV when it's not a surprise to somebody. When we eliminate a lot of the surprises through financial transparency for the business, for the organization. And again, this is Estefania. I'm happy to have a conversation with you, maybe to hear your story a little bit offline, and maybe I can give you some ideas one-on-one in regards to that. Okay, we have another question. How do you quickly assess the DNA of someone that you don't know? That's a great question. First of all, know yourself. Know what you're looking for, know who you are, know who you're not. Understand, people are going to be attracted to you for a lot of different reasons. So first, know thyself. And a great tool, a free tool, and I'll drop it here in the chat, is a product called colorcode.com. And it's a free communication and assessment tool that I have. I use it actually in my coaching business and in my recruiting business when I'm hiring employees for the recruiting company or when I'm potentially engaging new client opportunities. And it tells me how they communicate, and it tells me a little bit how they see the world. That is super huge, because I need to work with somebody who we can be more in alignment. We don't have to be in agreement all the time, but we have to have similar core values and similar belief systems. So I found colorcode.com is a great tool for that. And there's a free version and a paid version. There are tests called Colby and DISC, and they give an assigned number to the person taking the evaluation tool, whether again it's you as the leader or it's the people you're interviewing. So then what that will do is in the interview and in the conversation with people, it will give you a list of questions and it will give you other ideas on how to navigate the conversation. And if you're looking just from a recruiter standpoint, if you're looking for a great book on how to do really in-depth people analysis and people evaluations in the interview process, I always recommend a book called Top Grading. And it really, especially for high six-figure hiring positions, it's really a powerful tool to be able to assess, and it creates a question track to allow you to flesh out great people. Jordy has a question. How much vulnerable must you be with others? Could I be at risk? Could it be a risk? I think, Jordy, to best answer that question, there's always a risk in showing vulnerability. Because people can take a shot at you. They can, in theory, attack. They can be, very aggressive, such as, if you're very vulnerable, saying, listen, I as the leader have done everything I can do. I'm going to have to let you go because I simply don't have any money to pay your salary or to pay your hourly wage. People can be very attacking in regards to the pain they're coming from. So remember that when we are upset, or when people are upset, when people are threatened and they're heightened and they're reactive, they're coming from a point of pain. And it's easier for them to expel that pain onto us as the leaders. It's easier for them to blow up and take it out on us, because all they're doing is sharing their pain. It's a matter of where are they coming from and how are they attacking? It's up to us to recognize that. So when we're vulnerable and we're feeling that blowback and that pressure from them, it's them expressing it to us because they're in pain. So we don't always have to take that in, but we have to, if we can understand where it comes from, it does depersonalize it a little bit. Someone put into the chat the books that didn't show up. So the book for interviewing people to ascertain whether they're a good fit for your company, especially for more expensive, higher level hires, is a book called Top Grading by Jeff Smart. Some of the tools for the interviewing in the process is colorcode.com. There's diagnostic tests called Colby and DISC, D-I-S-C, that allow it. Someone put in the message that they wanted to see if I could stick around for another 5 minutes. I'm happy to stay as long as you guys want me. So this is super fun for me. It helps me give the feeling that I'm improving lives. I love the question. So as long as you guys want to stay with me, I can stay with you. Again, that's at the discretion of our moderator.
Yeah, actually, no, that was me who put it.
Oh, okay.
I was wondering if you were okay. Yeah, because I mean, it's 45 minutes, but because there were a bunch of questions. So I'd say,
sure,
like 5 more minutes. And if people have, just to give, like, so throw your last minute questions at Todd right now. If that's okay, Todd, you have another 5 minutes to hang out.
Absolutely. And it's so exciting for me to receive the questions and to engage you guys as an audience. I love the fact that, we've been able to keep people, over nearly 35, 40 people around for this long a period of time. Because I know these things can get a little tedious. They can get a little uninteresting. What I would throw out to people too is to ask yourselves to really consider, how do you define success and what it means to you, especially during these difficult times. Instead of only defining success as just growing your business when maybe it's not a possibility, maybe your success could be, and just an idea is, keeping my business going is the new version of success for the next 60 to 90 to 120 days. Spending more quality time with my family and connecting with those loved ones who I know I'm going to have less time for once the economy comes back and once the world is back to a new sense of norm. Also consider, if you've got employees who maybe are working from home, who used to work in your office, are you going to be willing to continue to maintain a work from home environment for them? People, that's one of the biggest shifts I think we're going to see around the globe, is people who are going to want to only work from home. And if you're not an employer who's going to be flexible on that, they may leave you to go find another opportunity. So lots of things to consider. I guess ultimately, I want to leave people with this. The biggest joy in entrepreneurship for me has always been recognizing that, we can make a difference in the world. And it's not always a financial difference. Sometimes we're able to help people get a job they couldn't have. Sometimes we're able to help a single parent take care of their children in a better way. Sometimes it's a matter of getting people into a situation where they are able to grow themselves as individuals, grow themselves as parents and spouses, and then grow themselves as entrepreneurs. It's always a different process. A very generous person on the chat asked, what is the structure of a coaching session? So I'll give you 2 answers to that. For the 30-minute coaching session that I'm happy to give to you guys for no charge, it really takes you down the path of where's your mindset now? I always start with where are you at? I want to meet you where you are, not where I think you should be. Secondly, if it's a business issue, it's taking you through your mindset, taking you through your cash position, your people position, and then I usually wrap it up with what are the top next 5 things you can do to put yourself in a better spot to grow your business. Now, for people who are my paying clients who work with me, my model is different than a lot of coaches. I do two 60-minute calls per month or 4 30-minute calls per month. Then on a quarterly, I do a whole quarterly 8-hour planning session on a quarterly basis. And I do that either with the CEO individually or the CEO and their leadership teams, however they want to run that. Jordy has a question. The recommendation for Jeff. So it's Jeff Smart, and it's spelled GEOFFSMART. And his book is called Top Grading. I think it's just, it's a father-son team, but just type in top grading into Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and you can find it in that respect. It looks like we're running up on time. Miss Moderator, is there anything else we want to go over today?
No, I'm gonna, yeah, I mean, this has been amazing. And yeah, it's true. I've been on calls where people do not stay to the end. So really kudos to you. Most people did stay to the very end, which is a testament to how interesting this is. I think maybe anyone who wants to get in touch with you to continue this conversation, maybe tell people the best way to do that.
Sure, I'll type it in the chat box as well. So the best place to reach me is on my website. And now remember, I'm in the United States, so I'm on Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to have a conversation with me at 2 in the morning my time, yeah, I'll do my best, but I can't make any promises. So my email is todd@extraordinaryadvisors.com. You can also find me on social media. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. It's just been an honor to be with you guys today. I love to be able to reach across the oceans through technology, especially during these challenging times. So again, anybody who wants to stay connected, please feel free to reach out to me. And I want to thank the folks at Management 3.0 for having me. It's been a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, really, thank you so much. It's been one of our most engaging, and it's just so appropriate right now. So it's been amazing. And everyone listening, thank you guys for participating and for being with us. And next month, we have another fabulous seminar. So we're going to be talking about sparking the change across organizations. So sign up for that if you haven't already. You can go to management3.0.com. And Todd, yeah, fabulous. We'll have to get you back to do this again when this whole crazy world we're living in right now comes to an end.
I'd love to come back. My next book is going to be out in September. Maybe that'd be a good time.
That would be a great time. Yes. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.